Welcome back to Liz and Sandro's Marketing Podcast. We're the podcast that helps your small business grow through all things digital marketing, including through email marketing, web design, SEO, and so much more. Today, Liz is going to discuss how long it usually takes or can take to build a new website.
Thanks, Sandro. Yes, whenever I am chatting with a potential client about our website building process and how long it takes, I quite often get some shocked responses when they understand that it's not going to be done in a week. And I walk them through the entire process. And one of the stories that I wanted to share today, which I'm super excited about, we're wrapping up a website, and I'm excited for a couple reasons. First reason is because in the first few months of 2018, we at Hirsch PR, we spent a lot of time revamping and tweaking our website building process, really documenting everything very carefully, making sure everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing and when. I'm super excited about that. And so one of the first websites we got to test this new process on was a website for an attorney, which we started that site May 1st. We launched the site yesterday, actually, and it's mid-July now. And there's going to be a couple final steps that we, in testing that we want to do now that the site is launched. And we're going to be wrapping it up next week. So I feel like I've got a great benchmark. And the reason I say that is because this was what I would consider to be a very basic website. I think it was maybe 8 pages. It did not have any e-commerce, no crazy plugins, more or less it was what I would consider to be a basic website. And everything went very smoothly, again, with the process, but also the client was incredibly responsive. In our contract, we say, we love to have a response within 3 days. Typically, clients take a little bit longer, but this client was very on point. It was rare that it went 3 days to get a response from her. So I was super excited about that. And I feel like this is a great benchmark to say to potential clients, even the most basic of WordPress websites takes a solid 12 weeks from start to finish. Just to give you a little bit more insight of what website projects encompass for us at Hirsch PR. We definitely spent some time in the planning phase, really getting to know the client, understand what they want communicated on the site, what differentiates them from competitors. That's really important. We put together a pretty extensive planning documents. And once we have approval from that, then we spend some time doing some keyword research. And I've done a whole episode on keyword research, so I won't get into that today. But keyword research is very important. The next step is writing content, which does take some time. And we need approval on the content from the clients. From there, we move into design. We typically do a homepage mock-up and one interior page mock-up to make sure that we are in line with the vision that the client had for the site. And once we get approval from that, then we actually build out the entire site. We do some testing before we deploy it on the live URL. And that's, again, a very high-level overview of what we do to build websites. So generally speaking, I don't like to rush this process. I definitely make sure that we are staying on track, we're meeting deadlines. But when potential clients come to me and say, oh my gosh, 3 to 4 months, are you kidding?
And usually by that time, they've already waited 2 years.
Good point. Yeah. They've known that their website was so dated, desperately in need of a revamp. So yeah, now they're anxious to move forward.
So the 12 weeks shouldn't really be that much of a problem.
No, it shouldn't.
But you can't tell that to a client.
Well, typically once I explain to them all of the steps that are involved, they back off a little bit. They don't realize
it's a process.
It is a process. And yeah, keyword research doesn't happen in a day. Content isn't written in a day. Graphics aren't created in a day. It takes some time. The other thing that I also say is, hey, if you were my only project, I could probably get this done in about 4 weeks, but we are juggling other clients, other deliverables. So yeah, like I said, super excited that this process really went off without any hiccups. And I think moving forward, if I do get a lot of pushback from a client, or if opportunity, really is a rush job, I'm certainly going to charge appropriately for that, but also really communicate some steps that we may need to take out or not focus on quite as extensively. Maybe pulling back on some of the graphics work. Maybe just using a very basic template if speed is of the utmost importance and you want to get something launched, well, we're not going to spend 10 plus hours in the design phase, designing a slick looking site. It's going to be basic. Maybe we'll do a little bit more basic of keyword research, rather than researching and sifting through hundreds of key phrases. Maybe we just limit you to 25 or 50. So yeah, this was a really great learning opportunity for us, like I said, and a great benchmark for some examples with potential clients moving forward.
And for a small business, can they expect that from an agency 12 weeks, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And again, that's a basic site. If you start talking e-commerce, if you need some special functionality, if you already have some pretty strict brand guidelines in place and you really want to create a slick looking site, I would even say 4 or 5, 6 months, depending on what you're building.
Right. And also I found content can be a big blocker. You ask the client to submit content and it takes them a little longer than they wanted, or then they have to do other things to tend to their business so they don't have time to create content or to get you the content or get you the photos or the graphics.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that always made me unique. When I first started building websites, I never expected the client to provide content. But I come from a journalism background, like that was always built in to the process. So I think that has always helped the process go a lot smoother.
And on the flip side, you have something like GiveCamp. GiveCamp's an annual event held in many cities across the country, maybe in other parts of Europe also. But it's a weekend where a bunch of coders and WordPress developers and SEOs and content people and graphic designs people all gather for about 50 hours from 4 p.m. on Friday till 6 p.m. on Sunday and just create 20 websites for 20 nonprofits. Nonprofits that can't afford new websites. They know they need a new website. They know they need something because their stuff's just really outdated and they need help and they can't afford it. So we all volunteer and knock these things out in a weekend. So it's not 12 weeks like Liz said, but in those 50 hours, you do get a pretty great website and some pretty good content and new graphics.
And how much sleep do you get during this weekend? Remind me.
So not a lot generally, but you do have a team. So last year we had 220 people taking on 20 projects and we had more than enough people and we knocked things out really quickly. This year we didn't have as many, so people had to share talent across different projects, but we still knocked them all out. It was fantastic. And I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of pre-work done. I don't know what the vetting process or the onboarding process is that you've implemented. But for GiveCamp, there's a lot of submissions. There's more than 20 submissions from nonprofits. So we talk to them, we work with them, and we find out exactly what they need. And then we say, okay, this is the deliverable. This is what you're going to get. And sometimes they say, but can I also have video conferencing? We're like, no, you're not going to get video conferencing.
So the scope is pretty narrowly defined.
Yes, usually a simple website. Sometimes they already have great websites and they do want the video conferencing added. So we'll build them a private video conferencing. I believe we did that for the Epilepsy Foundation. People with epilepsy can't drive generally, they can't drive. So they want to be a part of some of the meetings, so there's private video conferencing available for them. So the scope of the projects are very narrow, and we can say no, but we also say if there's time. So we want to knock the project out, make it really nice, do really well, and if there's time, we can get to these other things, but it depends on the project manager. So within 50 hours, it's great for us as developers and coders because once those 50 hours are done, we say goodbye. We never talk to the client again. I think we mentioned that before. And it feels so great to work with a big team and do something good for the community annually and use your talents for one weekend. A lot of big agencies, they send their people over, and I think they actually pay them or they just require them to volunteer. and be part of it and lend their talents to this. So that's the opposite of 12 weeks for a typical website. We do it in 50 hours. But again, there is a lot of onboarding, a lot of questions that we ask of the nonprofit, of the client, before we begin the process, and give them a very strict scope of work, telling them this is what you're going to do. And while all that's going on, the nonprofit's there, and we're teaching them how to use WordPress, because that's all we're using is WordPress. Most of them don't know how to do it. We're teaching them that. We're teaching them SEO. We're teaching them some very basic things too. So if you have 220 people, then you can knock it out in 50 hours. But if you're just an agency with 3 or 4 or 5 people, then 12 weeks. And if you got other projects obviously going on too. But this is just one example of the opposite end of what an agency usually does.
So fellow agencies and consultants out there, I know how frustrating it can be when you're excited that you have a new opportunity on the table and they think it can be done within a matter of weeks. And it is really all about education and setting expectations. And, on the flip side, if you are a small business and you're vetting potential partners for a project, just understand what really is involved. I wouldn't certainly expect you to know everything that's involved with building a website, but, definitely understand that there is a lot to it. There are many steps. I think at one point when I documented every step in my process, it was close to 200 steps. And some of those are, quick 5-minute tasks. Others, take a while. But there's a lot that goes into building a WordPress website. So and if listeners, we'd love to hear your insight on this subject as well. So definitely reach out to us.
Thanks so much, Liz. Thanks for talking about this. I know it's a question a lot of small business owners have. How long will it take to build my new website? And they're surprised, but Liz gave us some good reasons not to be surprised at the length of time it may take. Thank you, Liz, and thank you for joining us. If you like what you hear, we'd love a review. You can find us on iTunes and the new Google Podcasts. Also, a few other places like Stitcher and other places. If you have a question, please shoot it our way. We will answer it and give you a shout out on the show. We'll also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.